Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next hour. Voting concludes for 7th and last phase of India's parliamentary elections. Voting held for 57 parliamentary constituencies in the last phase. Prime Minister thanks voters for their active participation. All eyes on vote counting on June 4th. Most exit polls predict 350 plus seats for BJP-led National Democratic Alliance. BJP expected to gain more seats in southern states of India. In other news, US President Joe Biden urges Hamas to accept new Israeli proposal to end conflict in Gaza, says it is time for this war to end. Hamas responds positively. And US Defense Chief Austin addresses Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, pushes for peaceful resolution of disputes through dialogue. Japan Defense Minister raises concerns over Indo-Pacific security environment. And we begin with the latest on the world's largest elections in India. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has thanked voters for their active participation in the general elections. Taking to social media platform X, he wrote, "India has voted. A heartfelt thank you to all those who exercise their franchise." He further wrote, "Their active participation is the cornerstone of our democracy. Their commitment and dedication ensures that the democratic spirit thrives in our nation. I would also like to especially appreciate India's Nari Shakti and Yuva Shakti. The strong presence at the polls is a very encouraging sign." Prime Minister also applauded NDA members who braved the intense heat during electioneering. He wrote, and I quote, "I would like to applaud each and every NDA Karyakarta across the length and breadth of India, often braving intense heat. I compliment them for meticulously explaining our development agenda to the people and motivating them to come out and vote. Our Karyakartas are our strength, greatest strength." And after marathon Lok Sabha elections 2024 spread over 6 weeks, the second longest general election since 1951-52, it's time for exit polls. Well, now let's take a look at this. A big win for the ruling BJP-led NDA has been predicted by 6 exit polls, that is Republic Bharat, PMark 359, India News, D Dynamics 371, Republic Bharat and Matrix between 353 and 368, Dainik Bhaskar 281 to 350, News Nation 342 to 378, and Jan Ki Baat exit poll 362 to 392. So these are the exit polls predictions on your screen. On the other hand, the opposition, now these are the predictions for opposition. Indie Bloc is predicted to wait another 5 years, it seems, as per Republic Bharat. PMark exit poll, 154 seats will be the Indie Bloc. Republic Bharat Matriz is given 118 to 133. Jan Ki Baat has positioned opposition between 141 to 161. India News D Dynamics combination has given them 125 seats. News Nation 153 to 169 seats. And Dainik Bhaskar has positioned them anything between 145 to 201 seats. This is for the Indie Bloc or the opposition bloc or the opposition alliance. So we now also get you the Great Indian Parliamentary Election 2024. More news and updates, the 7th and the final phase of which concluded peacefully today. The intense and high-octane 7 phases of electioneering spread over more than a month will culminate on 4th of June as India gets to decide who is going to be their next Prime Minister. Ravindra Chauhan of DD India gets us more in this report.
India's electoral exercise concluded on Saturday with 7th phase polling. This phase signifies the culmination of the extensive democratic process to elect 543 representatives for the 18th Lok Sabha, the lower house of the Indian Parliament. Phase 7 of the general elections encompassed 57 parliamentary constituencies across 8 states and union territories. They included Bihar, Chandigarh, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. Simultaneously, polling took place for the remaining 42 assembly constituencies of the Odisha State Legislative Assembly. Following the smooth conclusion of the parliamentary elections' final phase, BJP National President JP Nadda extended congratulations to the Election Commission of India for facilitating free and fair elections. Meanwhile, the opposition bloc convened a meeting at Mallikarjun Kharge's residence post-election, expressing confidence in securing a comfortable majority.
We are absolutely confident of our numbers, 295 minimum seats that India Alliance will be getting. So we decided that this is the Janta Ka poll and we should take it to the television channels and expose the BJP ecosystem and the Sarkari exit polls that will be shown today.
The overall voter turnout for the 7th phase until 5 p.m. was recorded at 58.92%, with Odisha's assembly election witnessing a turnout of 62.66%. West Bengal reported the highest voting turnout in the 7th phase, while Himachal Pradesh observed a turnout of 66.91%, with long queues of voters seen at polling stations. Conversely, Punjab registered a lower voter turnout until 5 p.m. compared to the previous elections.
Everything is peaceful. We had no incident wherein polling process itself was vitiated or any sort of violence reported. So everything is peaceful. Voters are coming in large number since 7 a.m. in the morning.
This marks the grand culmination of the world's largest polling marathon, which commenced on the 19th of April, spanning 7 phases and encompassing 543 parliamentary constituencies. The nation now eagerly anticipates the counting of votes, which is scheduled for the 4th of June.
Meanwhile, the leaders of the opposition India Allies or India Alliance met in New Delhi at the Congress chief Mallikarjun Kharge's residence. In the meeting, it was decided that the India Allies will not boycott exit polls television debates. The Congress earlier announced it would not participate in exit poll television debates. And with the successful conclusion of the final phase of India's general elections 2024, citizens in Varanasi have showcased their active engagement in the democratic process, participating with remarkable enthusiasm. DD India's Deepika encapsulates the essence of this electoral fervour in her next report, highlighting the vibrant spirit that percolates throughout the polling stations.
Curtains are now finally down on the largest electoral process in the largest democratic country, which is India. This election was spread across 7 phases, and in the last phase, where Varanasi was also one of the very important constituency of Uttar Pradesh. Now, Uttar Pradesh holds 80 constituencies, and these 80 constituencies, it is said, decide the parliament. And Uttar Pradesh witnessed a 7-phased polling, and today was the last phase of this great India democratic election. Especially talking about Varanasi, which is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's constituency, it witnessed a very fair voter turnout, crossing the 50% polling percentage mark. Now, what happens? Who makes the government will be decided on the 4th of June. But today, we could see that the voters thoroughly enjoyed the largest democratic elections. They enjoyed the facilities at the selfie booths. They also witnessed some key arrangements for them, considering this scorching heat, and they successfully voted for their favorite party. With camera person Sanjeev, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Varanasi.
Let's quickly go across to Deepika. She is joining us from Varanasi or Kashi. Deepika, over to you. How do you sum up the day today? In fact, I have my team of reporters from Himachal Pradesh, Kullu. Akshay is joining, and from Jadavpur in West Bengal, one of the key constituencies that went to polls today, is Dibendu joining us. Deepika, over to you. I mean, more than, I think, 46 degrees Celsius, fighting those intense heat wave conditions. It seems that Kashi came out in full strength to vote today.
Good evening, Sakal. You said it very right. It is indeed. It is already 15 past 9, and the atmosphere is still very hot and humid, and the weather isn't giving any sort of respite to the people of Varanasi. However, we've been on the ground since past 16 hours now on a continuous basis, and we've been talking to the voters. We've seen the entire electoral process that took place today, and the first visuals that we saw today in the morning at 6:30 a.m., half an hour before the opening of the gates of the polling booths, the excitement was at another level. We saw so many senior citizens, so many first-time voters, so many young people coming on in large numbers to cast their vote. And throughout the day, we did not see any dip in the number of in the number of people or in the percentage of people coming in, and that is all the more reason why we have recorded around 56% polling percentage here in Varanasi. And not only this, the Election Commission of India also put its best foot forward to make all the arrangements. They provided ORS sachets, important medicines, and not only this, jaggery to the voters so that they keep themselves hydrated throughout the electoral process. So this has now concluded. Altogether, we've recorded around 56%.
Okay.
Earlier, if you talk about in 2019, it was somewhere around 59%, but since the weather is very hot, I think 56% is also a very fair voter turnout here in Varanasi.
Okay, Deepika, I can see you're sweating and it's very hot and humid out there in Kashi. Very quick one. This is one of the most crucial, critical, hot seat represented by Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself. What's the mood like? What's the sentiment like there? Very quickly.
If you also look at the exit polls, I think everything is in favor of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We've been talking to the people since past 8 to 9 days here, and they say that they've seen transformational journey of Kashi, and that is the main ground why they want to why they want to vote in favor of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because the vote goes in the name of development and not in any particular party's name, be it BJP or be it the Congress. So here, when we look at the exit poll also, they also depict the same sort of picture what we analyzed during our conversations with the voters here. And
Okay.
I think the 4th of June would tell us the final result, but as of now, it seems like a clean sweep for Prime Minister Narendra Modi once again.
All right. Thank you very much, Deepika, for joining us. I'm going to leave you out there and switching focus to Himachal Pradesh, from Manali, Akshay is joining. Akshay, so the sentiment is no different in Himachal there. Political bigwigs in the fray, and some of them making debut also.
Well, absolutely. As far as Himachal Pradesh is concerned, Sakal, we have veteran leaders like Union INB Minister Anurag Thakur. We have Bollywood superstar Kangana Ranaut contesting here. We have son of Raja Veerbhadra Singh, Vikramaditya, who is contesting from Mandi constituency as well. So there are a lot of bigwigs, and perhaps that was also the reason why all the political parties that are in the poll fray. In fact, there are just two. This was a bipolar contest between the BJP and the Congress party. Both had their star campaigners in the state contesting for their best candidates, for not just for the parliamentary seats but also for the by-election seats that will be deciding the fate of the state government's future. Now, talking about the way contest has happened, 3 seats are there that are still being considered quite strong basis for the Bharatiya Janata Party in this election. In fact, in the last election in 2019, BJP had swept the state, winning all the 4 seats. In 2014 as well, they had swept the state, winning all the 4 seats. And in 2009 as well, BJP had an upper hand with 3 seats and the Congress party only winning 1. Now, this is 2009 we are talking about, when the Congress formed government in the center. And this time around, it seems that the BJP had quite strong candidates here, be it Suresh Kashyap from the Shimla constituency. We have Union INB Minister Anurag Thakur contesting from the Hamirpur constituency, and from here, from Mandi, it was Kangana Ranaut.
Yes.
So we had strong BJP faces here, one from the Congress party as well. That was Vikramaditya, as we spoke about earlier, the legacy of Raja Veerbhadra Singh, and how the longest serving Chief Minister's son was also contesting from the Congress party. So it was quite an interesting contest.
Okay. Devendu, coming to you, there were also some reports earlier in the day of, vandalizing polling booths, some stray incidents of violence. But overall, how do you sum up the day?
Well, Sakal, that's right. There have been incidents of violence reported even in this particular phase of elections. It was the last phase of elections here in Bengal as well as nationwide. But Sakal, interestingly, let me point out to all our viewers about the nature of political violence in West Bengal. I'm sure none of us would have heard anywhere else in the country that an EVM machine along with the control unit and the VVPAT thrown into the pond.
Yes.
This is what we saw, visuals coming in from West Bengal.
But poll-related violence has always gone hand in hand with, elections, whether they're assembly or at the grassroots panchayat level in the state of West Bengal.
That's absolutely right, Sakal. And, it's basically unheard of in any other place where during electoral processes, people have to give their life and some even dies during the electoral process in Bengal. That is how the sad state of affairs is in the state of West Bengal. And this time around also similar situations were observed, not just in this phase, but across all the phases of election, right from phase 1 where we saw incidents of violence in Kuch Bihar to today what we saw in the last phase of elections here in Bengal. All the phases spread out through all the 7 phases, there were some or the other incidents of violence. And as you rightly said, poll violence and Bengal's elections goes hand in hand. And that is what was even witnessed during this election process as well. Even though, having said this, the Election Commission had deployed 1,000 companies of paramilitary forces here in Bengal. That is remarkably higher than any other state that has gone to polls in this general elections. Despite that, there have been incidents of violence that have been recorded and reported from the state of West Bengal.
Okay.
But having said this, despite this, there have been a good number of voter turnout in West Bengal. It's been almost more than 78 to 80% spread out through all the phases. And even in this phase of elections, it is expected to cross by tomorrow when we have the final numbers. It is expected to cross about 78 to 79%. So of course, the voter turnout
could
is
this
good.
be a strong sign of anti-incumbency, Dibendu? And then I'll go to Akshay.
Well, Sakal, that could perhaps be that is how, the electoral process in Bengal has been. It is the ruling party that dominates the electoral process in Bengal. This has started during the 34 years of left rule, carried forward by the 12 years of the rule of the Trinamool Congress. So each and every party that had come to power in Bengal ever since the Congress, in fact, right after independence, each one of them wanted to hold power in Bengal through muscle, and that's how it has been happening. And to curb the anti-incumbency, these muscle men are used by the ruling parties in the state of West Bengal, and that's what we have been witnessing in this election process as well.
Yeah, BJP giving a head-on challenge to Mamta's bastion. Akshay, final question. What is your assessment, overall voter sentiment today and the contest in Himachal?
Well, the contests were quite interesting, Sakal. If you have to take my opinion from covering different constituencies here, then BJP may just win again all the 4 seats in Himachal Pradesh, is what my prediction is like. Because even if you look at the Mandi constituency, where the contest was the most fierce, and in fact, Kangana Ranaut was being showed as an outsider by the Congress party. In fact, Vikramaditya, the son of Raja Veerbhadra Singh, kept on attacking Kangana of being an outsider. In a statement as well, he said either you leave Mandi or you leave Bollywood. And in a response to this, Kangana Ranaut had said that she will be leaving Bollywood completely if she wins from the Mandi constituency, and she'll be focusing on her political career and the welfare of the people. However, there was some sort of question that what will a Bollywood star do, because earlier as well across the country, we have different Bollywood stars that have been contesting from different constituencies. However, all of them have not been that successful as far as their constituencies are concerned. Being present there is concerned. So there was this sentiment against Kangana, I would say, in Mandi constituency. However, when you go around and speak about the national issue and who people want to see as the Prime Minister, then the answer has been for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that perhaps is one of the biggest reasons why the BJP may just again win all the 4 out of 4 seats, despite a strong contest here in the Mandi constituency.
Well, that's the broader sentiment for all the exit polls also, as you rightly pointed out, Akshay and Vimlendu. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. We'll have to just wait a few more days till 4th morning when the counting begins. And India decides. And staying with our team of reporters on ground, DD India's team of reporters, we have voting. We have a report from, I think, from Chandigarh also coming in from Amritpal, where voting concluded in the 13 seats of Punjab and 1 seat of Chandigarh, marking a significant milestone in the democratic process of the region. And amidst all this anticipation and fervor, citizens there in Chandigarh exercise their fundamental right to vote, shaping the future trajectory of the governance there. DD India's Amitpal Singh reports that a palpable sense of civic duty amongst voters, reflecting the gravity and the significance of their choices.
I'm right now in Chandigarh and it's minutes left for polling to close. If I can ask my cameraman to show you, there are long queues here. Both women, men are coming out in huge numbers. Chandigarh in that sense has traditionally defied the national logic where urban constituencies vote less, but Chandigarh traditionally has voted in heavy numbers. In 2019, Chandigarh had voted about 74%. The number could touch that or surpass that. So in that sense, Chandigarh being an urban constituency defies the general conventional wisdom of the urban cities or urban places voting less. Punjab's 13 seats also went to polls today. Punjab has also defied the national trend. It votes less than the national average. This time around, the scene is no different. In Chandigarh, it's a direct contest between the BJP and the Congress. But in Punjab, what makes the election particularly unpredictable and intriguing is the four-cornered contest. Alliance partners at the national level, the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress, are pitted against each other, are contesting against each other in Punjab. Former alliance partners, the Shiromani Akali Dal and the BJP, who were together in 2019, are now contesting against each other. There's a fifth factor too on a few seats, and that makes the election even more interesting. That is Shiromani Akali Dal Amritsar of Simranjit Maan, the sitting MP from Sangrur. He's fielded candidates on all seats, but is in contention on some of the seats. His own seat of Sangrur, he's supporting Amritpal Singh, who is charged under the National Security Act lodged in Assam's Dibrugarh jail, a Khalistan protagonist. If Simranjit Maan, his candidates, his backed candidates win or secure a sizable number of votes in these constituencies, then both the political class and the national security apparatus of the country will have something to think about. With cameraman Manmohan Singh, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India.
Shifting focus to some international news now. Netanyahu's office has emphasized that a key component of the three-phase plan involves the destruction of Hamas, stating that Israel will not commit to a lasting ceasefire until the objective is achieved. The statement comes after US President Joe Biden outlined a three-part plan by Israel to put an end to the conflict in Gaza. Let's take a look at this report.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday that there would be no permanent ceasefire in Gaza until Hamas's military and governing capabilities were destroyed. His comments in a statement published online came after US President Joe Biden said that Israel had proposed a three-phase deal for a ceasefire in Gaza in exchange for Hamas releasing hostages.
This new proposal has three phases. The first phase would last for 6 weeks. Here's what it would include: a full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners.
Peace negotiations have stalled for months, with Israel insisting on the release of all hostages and the dismantling of Hamas, while Hamas is pushing for a lasting ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces, and the release of numerous Palestinian prisoners. A hostage proposal put forward earlier this year had called for the release of sick, elderly and wounded hostages in Gaza in exchange for a 6-week ceasefire that could be extended to allow for more humanitarian aid to be delivered into the enclave. US President Joe Biden strongly defended Israel, saying Israeli forces are not committing genocide in their military campaign against Hamas.
But let me be clear. Contrary to allegations against Israel made by the International Court of Justice, what's happening is not genocide. We reject that. We will always stand with Israel and the threats against its security.
Biden emphasized at the White House event that he believed Israel was a victim, particularly highlighting the October 7 attack on southern Israel by Hamas militants, where 1,200 people were killed and hundreds were taken hostage. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken held separate phone calls with foreign ministers from Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Jordan and discussed a proposal to achieve an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Peace talks have sputtered for months, with Israel demanding the release of all hostages and the destruction of Hamas, while Hamas demands a permanent ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces and the release of many Palestinian prisoners. Rahul Upadhyay's report, DD India.
And on Saturday, the Prime Minister of Israel reiterated that the conditions to end the conflict with Hamas have not changed. In a post on microblogging site X, Israeli Prime Minister's office, Israeli Prime Minister's office said, and I quote, Israel's conditions for ending the war have not changed. The destruction of Hamas military and governing capabilities, the freeing of all hostages and ensuring that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. Under the proposal, Israel will continue to insist these conditions are met before a permanent ceasefire is put in place. The notion that Israel will agree to a permanent ceasefire before these conditions are fulfilled is a non-starter, unquote. Indonesia's president-elect Prabowo Subianto has said that his country was willing to send peacekeeping troops to enforce a ceasefire in Gaza if required. Speaking at the Shangri-La Dialogue, Asia's premier security conference, Prabowo said US President Joe Biden's 3-phase proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza was a step in the right direction. Prabowo says a comprehensive investigation into the humanitarian disaster in the Rafah area of Gaza was needed.
Recent tragic events in Rafah, in Gaza, which have resulted in numerous innocent casualties. These heartbreaking incidents compel us to urgently call for comprehensive investigation into this humanitarian disaster.
Britain's Labour Party launched its battle bus on Saturday in London. The Labour leader Keir Starmer was joined by Deputy Leader Angelina Rayner and Shadow Chancellor Rochelle Reeves to announce the start of the bus tour that will take them to cross the country. The Labour Party currently led the Conservative Party by around 20 points in opinion polls. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next, South Africa is set to end 3 decades of dominance by African National Congress or ANC. Canada Defence Minister warns China against meddling in its elections.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and before we move on, let's do a quick recap of the headlines at this hour. Voting concludes for 7th and last phase of India's parliamentary polls. Voting held for 57 parliamentary constituencies in last phase. Prime Minister of India thanks voters for their active participation. Now all eyes on vote counting on 4th of June. Most exit polls predict 350 plus seats for the BJP-led NDA or National Democratic Alliance. BJP expected to gain more seats in southern states of India. And US President Joe Biden urges Hamas to accept a new Israeli proposal to end conflict in Gaza, says it's time for this war to end. Hamas responds positively. US Defense Chief Austin addresses Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, pushes for peaceful resolution of disputes through dialogue. Japan Defense Minister raises concern over Indo-Pacific security environment. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has refocused attention on China's threat in the Asia-Pacific on Saturday, seeking to alleviate concerns that conflicts like Ukraine and Gaza have distracted from America's security commitments in the region. Just hours after Austin spoke at the annual Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also arrived in Singapore. My colleague Jessica Taneja gets us this detailed report.
The Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore wasn't a place for small talk this year. The annual defense summit, known for its frank discussions, was gripped by a more urgent reality. Distant conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza threaten to overshadow the ever-present challenge in Asia, that is China's growing power. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, a veteran of countless battles, arrived with a clear mission: reassure his increasingly anxious allies. Concerns about America's waning focus on the Indo-Pacific, fueled by distant wars, were palpable. He highlighted the United States' commitment with $8 billion allocated for countering China's influence in the Indo-Pacific as part of a recent supplemental funding bill. Austin countered decisively, reminding everyone of the real threat: China's expanding military and assertive actions in the South China Sea and around Taiwan.
And America will continue to play a vital role in the Indo-Pacific. Together with our friends across the region that we share. In the United States, across the United States government, across our political landscape, you'll find a strong and bipartisan commitment to the Indo-Pacific. Now, critics and propagandists will still oppose the principles that drive convergence. They will continue to reject the rule of law, and they will try to impose their will through coercion and aggression.
Meanwhile, a different kind of conversation unfolded on the sidelines between Lloyd Austin and his Chinese counterpart, Dong Yun. The US condemned China's coercive behavior while Dong bristled at the thinly veiled accusations. Yet, amidst the animosity, a flicker of pragmatism emerged. Recognizing the potential for a single misstep to ignite a wider conflict, they agreed to reopen military communication channels, a lifeline thrown across the churning sea of mistrust. Across the room, Japan and China locked horns over their own set of grievances. Japanese Defense Minister Kihara Minoru, his voice laced with concern, highlighted China's increasingly aggressive maneuvers near disputed Senkaku Island. The air crackled with unspoken threats, a stark reminder of historical wounds. At the same time, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin affirmed that India-US relations are rooted in shared visions and value and will continue to build a robust alliance.
You know, several years ago, we set out with a notion to gain approval for India to build jet engines for fighter aircraft in India. I served on the board of a company that makes jet engines for fighter aircraft, and I know how difficult this was going to be. And we were hopeful but very skeptical that we could get this across the finish line. We did it. That's happening. As I said in my speech, we're co-producing armored vehicles with India. So the anchors of our progress are sunk pretty deep throughout the region.
Despite the palpable tension, the power dynamics of Asia played out in clear view. The United States, determined to maintain its hegemony, faced a rising China, eager to challenge the status quo. Yet, beneath the surface, a grudging recognition simmered. A high-stakes competition with the ever-present threat of escalation looming. The question remained, could this delicate balance be maintained? Or would a misstep send Asia into a new era of animosity? Only time would tell. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
And Anil Wadhwa, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, former senior diplomat, joins us to decode the strong statements made by the US Defense Secretary there. Ambassador Wadhwa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you saw a report, detailed report, and also the statements that have come from Austin. What do you make of it? The fact that America is very clearly and cleverly diverted attention to the South China Sea. Do you see some sort of pressure building up on China? How do you look at, first of all, America in this whole conversation?
So I think the Shangri-La Dialogue is a very good barometer of the US-China relationship over the past few years. And judging from that, this year's pronouncements of Lloyd Austin were much more in the direction of trying to make sure that lines of communication with China were kept open. I think one of the major accomplishments which came out of this dialogue which was described as positive and practical and constructive by both sides, was that there is now a support for a crisis communications working group by the end of the year. And that's what the United States wanted, that the lines of communication be kept open and that the United States maintains its presence in the region along with its regional allies as much as possible, strengthens that, and at the same time buys some time so that it can build up its own strength to counter the expansionist policies of China and the strengths that Chinese have embarked upon. So, of course, while expressing concern about developments in China as far as the nuclear space and cybersecurity capabilities that they have, and also making sure that they said the right things about the coercive nature of the Chinese actions vis-a-vis Taiwan, the United States wants to maintain a presence and a long-term presence in the region.
So this hard talk by Lloyd Austin, do you think this will cut some ice, or this has perhaps cut some ice with China? For example, the using of words like peaceful resolution, dialogue for dispute resolution, not coercion or conflict, and certainly not through so-called punishment, quote unquote, hinting at Taiwan.
Yes, of course. I think that is what was supposed to have been conveyed, and which he did very effectively. At the same time, the Chinese have also made their point that they would not brook any interference in the internal affairs of China, because China considers that Taiwan is an integral part of China, and that any presence, military presence or escalation by the United States in the region would be counterproductive. So that point was made by Dong Chun in his pronouncements. So we are at a stage where both sides have stated their positions quite clearly, but at the same time, no one wants to have an escalation in the conflict.
How about Japan again trying to tell China that enough is enough? How do you look at the dialogue, the conversation between Japan and China?
So once again, I think as far as the Japanese side is concerned, they would like to ensure that the status quo is maintained as much as possible and that there is no escalation which takes place. There's a high stakes that the Japanese have in China economically. And that we've seen recently that we've had a trilateral meeting between China, Japan and South Korea, which just ended, where once again, there were 5 principles which were agreed upon by both sides, or 3 sides rather, and they agreed to work together with other countries in the region based on those principles. So the effort seems to be to have a stability which is maintained in the region without trying to escalate anything beyond a certain point. And that's exactly what has also transpired at the Shangri-La Dialogue.
Yeah. So a quick one on the firm reminders or statements coming from the Canadian side as well, that please do not meddle with our elections.
Yes, I don't think that is connected, but that's an old, problem which the Canadians have with the Chinese, which has been simmering for a long time, for many years now. And in fact, it's a manifestation of the suspicion which exists within Canada about Chinese interference and the hold that the Chinese have over the political process in Canada. So it's a reiteration of that suspicion.
Okay, how do you overall see the dynamics, the power play dynamics, whether it is China, Japan, or China, US, and Canada, China, and the fact that as we speak, Volodymyr Zelensky, he's also there, he's also going to rally for support, and whatever is happening between Israel and Palestine. The timings of this summit, and obviously I think one can safely say there have been many uncomfortable conversations in the room there.
Yes, I think the time has come to talk quite frankly about, the various tensions which exist around the world. Mm-hmm. The Shangri-La Dialogue is one good platform to air what countries feel as far as their own policies towards a particular issue are concerned. And this time, beyond the US-China tensions, we've also had a number of pronouncements on the China-Taiwan issue. We've seen the Russian-Ukraine issue, which has been given prominence, the Myanmar unrest, which was referred to as well, also the US role in the Indo-Pacific, the maritime security issue, and of course the Middle East tensions. So the Gaza issue has also figured. Right. Now, all these are hot spots around the world, and the Shangri-La Dialogue is an ideal platform to air these views.
All right, we'll leave it there. Many thanks, Ambassador Wadhwa, for giving us such a deep insight into the Shangri-La Dialogue and the big takeaways out of it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, during the Security Summit, Canada raised its concern towards China meddling in its elections. That's what we discussed with Ambassador as well, warning China. Canadian Defence Minister Bill Blair said that the actions by any foreign nation are unacceptable to Canada.
So we raised that concern of foreign interference and all the manifestations that it might take, including interference in our institutions, including our elections, but also actions of coercion against Chinese diaspora in Canada. They're our citizens. We have a responsibility to protect them, and we're going to. I did share that concern with my Chinese counterpart, and we discussed the importance of continuing the dialogue. I made it very clear that those actions by any foreign nation are unacceptable to Canada, and that we would...
And staying with Shangri-La Dialogue, Japan's Defense Minister Kihara Minoru has said that the security of the Indo-Pacific region is not optimistic, citing rising military tensions, disinformation and risks of regional emergencies. In his debut address at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, the Japanese Defense Minister issued warning about growing possibilities of simultaneous crises erupting in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. And we are going to take a short break here. We'll be back with more news and updates. Stay with us.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles, and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger, and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science, and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
The marriage between tech and tradition is what farmers need across the globe. Tech shows us ways to deal with new challenges in a world, while traditional knowledge and varieties show us how to withstand these challenges.
Some people in society look negatively at a woman if she steps outside of her home.
Do you know 700 different crop problems on 30 different crops? Diagnostic, that's tough for a human to do.
Big food manufacturers are getting like the biggest share. Farmers and farm workers, which are like in the bottom of this value chain.
When a volcanic eruption injects ash, dust and gases into the atmosphere, into the stratosphere, they form sulfate aerosols, which the Earth's rotation helps spread around the globe.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles, and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger, and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science, and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Thanks for staying with us. A recent polling conducted by Reuters has revealed a significant erosion in support for President Joe Biden among voters without college degrees, a demographic comprising a substantial portion of black individuals, Hispanic women, young voters and suburban women. Analysis of approximately 24,000 people have registered voters responded to Reuters polls conducted in 2020 and 2024, indicating a notable 10 percentage point drop in Biden's backing among this group compared to the same period in the previous election cycle. Now let's take a look at the other stories making news around the world. A Russian cargo spacecraft on Saturday successfully docked with the International Space Station orbiting Earth. As per NASA, the craft known as Progress delivered 9 tons of food, fuel and supplies to the orbiting research facility. Heavy rains in parts of southern Germany led to flooding on Saturday. Streets and fields were hit by the floods as firefighters closed off areas and directed traffic away from the worst affected areas. Met Department expect more precipitation and thunderstorms in the coming hours. In Indonesia, Mount Ibu in Halmahera erupted again on Saturday, spewing an ash cloud 5 kilometers high. Meanwhile, the National Disaster Mitigation Agency has issued a warning about potential eruptions, floods and cold lahar flows as a result. On to some UEFA action in sports. Mega UEFA Champions League final as 14-time champions Real Madrid will take on Germany's Borussia Dortmund in a summit clash at Wembley Stadium. The Los Blancos will start as the favourites in the biggest match of the season, while Dortmund have been the dark horse this year as they edged past teams like Atletico Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain to make it into the finals. It's going to be the last club match for Madrid legend Toni Kroos, who has announced his retirement after Euros. Meanwhile, veteran Marco Reus will also bid adieu to Dortmund after the UCL finals. And on to some French Open action. Ariana Sabalenka powered her way into the fourth round of the French Open on Saturday, beating Paula Badosa 7-5, 6-1. It was the seventh meeting between the two friends, but the first at a Grand Slam. Badosa has not managed to beat Sabalenka now since 2021 and did not look like doing so in Paris as well. The number 2 seed seemed far too powerful as she won an entertaining high-quality encounter at Roland Garros. And third seed Carlos Alcaraz sparkled in his most convincing win over American Sebastian Corda to reach the fourth round of Roland Garros on Friday. Alcaraz broke Corda in a close first game, but the world number 3 allowed his 27th seeded opponent to hit back instantly. Alcaraz let out a scream after blasting 101 miles per hour forehand to win the tie-break and double his lead in the contest. The finish line appeared in sight when he broke for a 3-1 lead in the third set, which he wrapped up with a neat volley. US President Joe Biden has welcomed the Kansas City Chiefs to the White House on Friday to congratulate the team for their back-to-back Super Bowl wins. Biden welcomed the Super Bowl 58 champions to the White House as part of a yearly tradition. He congratulated the team for their resilience on the field and also for team members' reaction during the celebratory rally after their win. Biden briefly donned a team helmet also handed to him by Chiefs head coach Andy Reid before mingling with the crowd. The Paris 2024 Olympic torch was lit on Friday on top of the Mount Saint-Michel Abbey, one of France's most visited tourist attractions. The torch travelled from Cherbourg and Cotentin and Granville to the UNESCO World Heritage Site with torchbearers including French astronaut Thomas Piquet. Some 1,500 torches will be used by the Olympic relay, which began on May 9th and is set to conclude on July 26th. Around 11,000 torchbearers in total will play their part carrying the flame to its final destination in Paris. In Nepal, a river cleanup campaign was organized there to clean the river from plastic pollution. And to clean river Sankosi in the Bagmati province of Nepal, 134 volunteers participated in the river cleanup campaign organized by Project CAP. Various stakeholders from different backgrounds participated in this river cleanup campaign from the Sankosi river banks and waste hotspots. In the run-up to the International Yoga Day 2024, Yoga Mahotsav 2024, High Commission of India has launched a 3-week-long celebration at the Indira Gandhi Cultural Centre in Dhaka. This year, the main events in Bangladesh will be held in Surawardi International Indoor Stadium in Mirpur, Dhaka on 21st of June. And the theme for International Yoga Day 2024 is Yoga for Women Empowerment. The purpose is to spread yoga as a global movement with a focus on improving women's health and well-being as well as world peace and health. An artificial intelligence summit took place in Geneva, showcasing humanoid robots playing on a miniature artificial soccer pitch and answering trivia questions. The summit displays technology wide-ranging uses. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live. Thank you.